The Infiniti M is a powerful, finely crafted and passionately designed executive saloon that sees Europe's newest luxury automotive brands squaring directly up against tough BMW 5 Series, Audi A6 and Mercedes E-Class rivals. Company customers prepared to try something a little different will be looked after royally at the wheel and in their Infiniti dealerships. BMW, Audi, Mercedes and Jaguar all make very desirable executive saloons. But what those makers very often don't deliver is exclusivity, either in the products that they make or in the dealer service that goes with them. But here's a brand with a car in this sector that delivers just that, the Infiniti M. Infiniti, you'd be forgiven for not knowing, is the luxury division of Nissan, much as Lexus is the plush part of Toyota. And to date, having done pretty well in the States, it's also been racking up some useful sales for its Japanese masters in Asian markets where the German premium brands aren't that widely represented. Taking them on in their own European backyard, of course, is a very different proposition. But Infiniti is bringing some heavyweight technology to the task, with petrol, diesel and hybrid options for business buyers prepared to try something a little different from their usual 5 Series, A6, E-Class or XF. Infiniti's first forays onto the European market were tentative, with coupe, convertible and crossover models that targeted fringe market sectors and came only with petrol engines that few buyers wanted. With this M Saloon, all that changed. This car targeted directly at the German-dominated executive saloon sector, soon to be worth nearly 3 million annual sales, and sold via a dealer network geared up to treat buyers like royalty. It certainly works on paper, with the rear-wheel drive handling feel of a 5 Series, the luxury of an E-Class, and the technology of an A6. But does it work in practice? That's what we're here to find out. Now, it's asking a lot for any vehicle nearly 5 metres in length, 2 metres in width and nearly 2 tonnes in weight to feel in any way sporty. But to its credit, this Infiniti M almost manages it. Wanting to test the variant that most customers are actually likely to buy, I've opted here for what you'd think would be the least sporty variant in the range, the M30D, which has a 235 brake horsepower 3-litre diesel, almost unrecognisable from its installation in Nissan's Pathfinder SUV. Yet it's enough to create in this machine a car that right off the bat on the twisty stuff feels quite able to take on Mercedes and Audi, if not Jaguar and BMW in this class. You see, steering feel is sharp and body roll well controlled, which is not bad at all for a first effort, especially since buyers have the option to sharpen things up further and replace the GT model that I'm driving here with an S-specified variant that has sport suspension and four-wheel steering to enable customers to make better use of rapid performance that can see you from rest to 60 in just 6.9 seconds in this M30D on the way to a restricted maximum speed of 155 miles an hour. The same GT and S model options are open to business buyers brave enough to go for a higher tax band and opt for the 315 brake horsepower 3.7 litre petrol V6 model. But though here the performance gains aren't great, rest to 60 occupies 6.2 seconds. But why am I going on about performance as if company customers habitually attended boardroom meetings via Brands Hatch? We all know that these cars will spend most of their lives pounding the highways between client conferences. Perhaps that's why the variant that makes most sense on the business balance sheet, the M35H hybrid model, is only offered in one simple languid guise, with a 3.5 litre V6 petrol engine linked to a 67 brake horsepower electric motor. Now it too is fast. Rest to 60 just takes 5.5 seconds, but overwhelmingly the emphasis is on silent, smooth progress, which is what, to a slightly lesser extent, characterises this M30D. Assuming that you can resist the temptation of using this sport mode, which exercises the engine further up in its rev range, milking the power and holding on to the gears for longer, then progress is almost always serene and relaxed. You waft along on a wave of 550 Newton meters of torque, the 7-speed automatic gearbox changing ratios with such smoothness that you'd swear its internals were made of Teflon and jellied eels. Symptomatic of Infiniti's attention to detail is the ANC active noise control system, which plays low-frequency sounds lightly through the speakers to cancel out unwanted engine noise. Not all of it is unwanted, to be fair. There's quite a sonorous thrum in the mid-range, but thanks to ANC and the standard double glazed glass, you'll be doing well to hear it. Long bonnet, short front overhang, raked back windscreen, short tail. With the M, all the usual Infiniti design cues are in place, melting into a design slightly longer than that of German rivals and said to be inspired by natural wave-like forms. Depending on who you believe, this is either simply a development of the Japanese market-only Nissan Fuga of 2004, or a more practical interpretation of the brand's Essence Super Coupe concept paraded at motor shows 5 years later. Whatever the truth, it's certainly a shape that's upmarket, if rather oriental in feel, but quite sufficient to achieve the kind of golf club cred that many owners will be seeking. Premium, but unpretentious, would be one way of describing it, a phrase that's also appropriate for the leather-lined interior. A broad centre console bisects the dash and continues on between the seats, creating very distinct zones for both driver and passenger. Both are enveloped in soft leather and gloss wood of the kind that Infiniti says has been used across Europe for centuries in the manufacture of luxury furniture and high-class musical instruments. I can't recall too many Queen Anne chairs or Louis XVI pianos featuring white ash with silver powder finish, but then I could be wrong. Anyway, it isn't enough to dispel what, at the end of the day, is a very Asian feel. For me, that's a good thing. Infiniti has gone beyond simply trying to copy the Teutonic brands and has tried, in many ways succeeded, to create a cabin with a more welcoming, less clinical feel. The analog clock is lovely, and everything you touch, every panel, every surface feels soft and sensuous. There's even a forest air setting in the climate control to waft leafy and wood-scented aromas over you while you drive. Now, though there's a central controller with a high-mounted central display screen to display sat-nav, air conditioning and in-car entertainment settings, there are still rather too many buttons and switches on the fascia, but once you master them, it's all pretty intuitive. Better still, it should be possible for just about anyone to find the ideal driving position, though prolonged fiddling with the 10-way adjustable electric seat may be necessary before you do so. And in the rear, well, one of the disappointments of graduating from a BMW 3 Series sized compact executive saloon to a fully fledged BMW 5 Series shaped proper executive conveyance is that the extra size and money still doesn't buy you a rear seat capable of taking 3 adults any real distance. So it is here. Unless you're an uncomplaining child, you won't want to be perched on this centre part of the seat for any real distance. But those either side of you will be very comfortable indeed, enjoying significantly more knee room than they get in a 5 Series. It's the perfect place to enjoy a cosseting ride engineered specifically to enable occupants to write legibly over poor surfaces at speed. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why the boot is a little smaller than that in obvious rivals, an issue that would to some extent be mitigated if you could push forward the rear seat backs to increase its capacity, but you can't. Still, lift the ducktail styled boot lid and the 450 litres that you do get in this diesel model should be quite sufficient for most, and it's a figure that actually rises to 500 litres for some reason if you go for the 3.7 litre M37 petrol V6, though the figure falls to just 350 litres if you opt for the M35H hybrid model, due to the need to have somewhere to accommodate all those batteries. There is the option of a ski hatch though, to give you extra carriage capacity for longer items. Infiniti M pricing starts at around £40,000 and ranges up to just under £50,000. If you take the M37 3.7 litre V6 petrol model as a starting point, then you'll need a £1,500 premium to graduate up to the M30D diesel that I've been trying here, and an £8,000 premium to get yourself into the M35H hybrid petrol electric model. Now, if you go for one of the volume petrol or diesel M models, you're looking at a £2,000 premium if you want the S version, which gives you sportier suspension, four-wheel steering and 20-inch wheels. So in other words, overall, you're looking at the kind of pricing that would otherwise get you a bigger engined, plusher version of an obvious executive rival like BMW's 5 Series, Audi's A6, Jaguar's XF or the Mercedes E-Class. Now, many potential buyers will be sizing up the M30D diesel that I've been driving here, priced slightly but not significantly above obvious rivals like BMW's 530D, Audi's A6 3-litre TDI 245 PS, Jaguar's XF 3-litre V6 or Mercedes E350 CDI. But Infiniti is quick to point out that any price differences that do exist are more than compensated for by this model's higher kit list. The M37 3.7 litre petrol V6 is priced even more tightly to obvious rivals, and only Lexus's GS can provide an alternative to the M35H hybrid. Whichever Infiniti M model you choose, the M37, this M30 diesel, or even the M35H hybrid model, you should find it stuffed with the kind of equipment that would cost you plenty more on obvious executive sector rivals. So across the range you can expect to find bi-xenon headlamps, parking sensors, a heated steering wheel, a reversing parking camera, 10-way power operated leather seats and a hard disk drive sound system, as well as all the other usual executive niceties. Go for the four-wheel steering S models and you can expect lovely 20-inch alloy wheels to replace the normal 18 inches. If you want more, then M37 and M30D buyers must opt to pay extra for premium spec, which comes as standard if you go for the M35H hybrid. Now here, apart from forest air scented climate control, the main in-car highlight is a multimedia setup that via a colour touchscreen enables you to control a 16-speaker Bose sound system and Infiniti's acclaimed Connectivity Plus information and entertainment system that gives you a 30 gigabyte satellite navigation system with voice activation. Perhaps the main benefit of the premium spec though is the access that it gives you to Infiniti's latest safety technology. Now, this includes a collision mitigation braking system that senses when a collision looks inevitable and will warn you and then partially brake for you if you don't respond. You also get a blind spot warning information system which senses if there's a car in your blind spot and, if necessary, can actively stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake it. There's also an intelligent cruise control system that'll keep you a safe distance behind the car in front on a motorway, and a lane departure warning system that'll stop drowsy drivers from unintentionally drifting out of their lanes on the highway. Whichever Infiniti M model you choose, as you'd expect, all the usual safety features are in place. So there are things like anti-whiplash front head restraints, ISOFIX child seat fixings, a tyre pressure monitoring system and 6 airbags, plus all the usual electronic stability, braking and traction controls to hopefully try and ensure that you never have to use them. Though the bonnet, doors and boot lid of this Infiniti M have all been crafted from aluminium, it doesn't appear to have saved a great deal of weight. This vehicle is still tipping the scales at the best part of 2 tonnes, which might go some way to explaining why this model's fuel and CO2 returns lag slightly behind those of rivals. Still, 37.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and a CO2 reading of 199 grams per kilometre aren't too bad from a vehicle of this size and weight, and thanks to an 80-litre fuel tank, promise an operating range of something over 800 miles. Even so, these readings are put firmly in the shade by those of the M35H hybrid model. Now, in theory, this variant is able to run on electric power alone at speeds of up to 60 miles an hour. Though in practice this would be difficult to achieve, since you've only got to lightly brush the throttle pedal to see the engine cutting in. But anyway, it manages 40.4 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 162 grams per kilometre of CO2. And to put those returns into perspective, they're about the same kind of figures that you'd get from a 1.8 litre petrol Vauxhall Astra. The M37 model, with its 315 brake horsepower 3.7 litre petrol V6 borrowed from Nissan's Rorty 370Z sports car, can't hope to match this, of course. Its quoted returns being 27.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 235 grams per kilometre of CO2. It does, though, feature what Infiniti call an eco pedal, which pushes back at your right foot if it thinks that you're pushing the throttle needlessly hard and wasting fuel. You'll be pleased to know that you can switch that feature off. What else? Well, residuals, if Infiniti are to be believed, they should be pretty close to those of German rivals. And insurance groups, well, they range between 44 and 46. Many better established brands than Infiniti have tried and failed to challenge the German prestige elite in the executive saloon sector. And the way that this M model, with its different and in many ways rather refreshing approach, gets so close to its BMW 5 Series, Audi A6 and Mercedes E-Class rivals at this Japanese maker's first attempt is undeniably impressive. It's true that an M doesn't have quite the sharpness of a BMW, the clinical coolness of an Audi, or the grand heritage of a Mercedes. But what you get instead is high-tech handling, thoughtful luxury, and killer customer service. Compensation, I think you'd agree. Enough to scare the Teutonic brands? It'll be interesting to see.